Hana Ashiya is a young man who is excited about attending his first day of high school. Unfortunately, he has the misfortune of stumbling upon a yokai the day before, and thus becomes haunted by it. The yokai seems to have an energy-draining powers, causing Hana to constantly collapse before he can reach his class. This goes on for a week, and Hana soon realizes that the yokai is growing bigger. Fed up with the destruction of his high school life, Hana wishes to get rid of the yokai for good, and stumbles upon an ad hiring exorcists. As he's desperate, Hana calls a number and soon meets face to face with a strange young man, named Albeno. Albeno at first refuses to deal with Hana's yokai, as Albeno had assumed that Hana was applying for the job. However, upon hearing Hana's last name, Albeno decides to help Hana out a bit. It turns out that the yokai haunting Hana just wanted to play. Albeno reveals that most of the yokai he has met were like this. They are just lonely and want company. But humans think that they are a nuisance and just want to get rid of them. Upon hearing this, Hana feels bad about how he treated the yokai. He plays ball with it until it is satisfied. Afterwards, Albeno sends it off to the underworld. Unfortunately, Hana's troubles aren't over yet. Albeno demands payment in underworld money, which Hana obviously doesn't have. So Hana is forced to work under Albeno. To make matters worse, Albeno turns out to be Hana's classmate. Episode 2. Hana does whatever Albeno tells him to do. When he is standing in a line to buy food for Albeno, he sees a girl fall down and unable to stand up and move her legs. Hana notices a yokai that has stuck itself to her leg. Hana pulls the tiny yokai off the girl's legs, releasing her from the pain. But after 10 minutes, he becomes possessed again by a yokai and is held on the ground by many small yokais. Albeno is mad, but he exorcises the yokai in order to get his part-timer back. After assessing the yokai, he figures that the little yokai reports back to one big yokai, so Ashiya becomes bait and he hands him over. The little yokai ambushes Ashiya and Albeno and crowd surf to the large yokai. Now, Big Daddy Scree, the leader of the small yokai, is looking for the master of the Mononokean. He claims that Master Albeno is a yokai himself. Albeno opens the door to the underworld. Big Daddy realizes and requests Albeno to send all the yokais to the underworld. Albeno exorcises the small yokai and returns them to the underworld. The big boss is too large to fit through it. He thanks them both and accepts his fate of living like that. But Hana tells he can't leave him like that, since the small yokai will be waiting for him. Albeno gives Big Daddy a poisonous and painful pill. The Big Daddy takes the pill to shrink himself until it can fit through the doorway. Albeno then opens the portal and sends Big Daddy to the underworld, where the small yokai were waiting for Big Daddy to come. Episode 3. Albeno is really tired and struggles to reach his room. Hana is also completely drained and needs a day rest. Next day in the school, Hana manages to make a couple of friends and is happy that his dream school life is about to come true. But before he has a chance to enjoy his new life, another yokai shows up who cannot express his emotions without a mask. And he has lost his laughing mask, which has the power to make anyone laugh uncontrollably. The only way to retrieve the mask is to make the person who has the mask look at the crying face. Since Hana is crying, Albeno decides to leave the job to him. Hana is sent on his first errand on his own, to retrieve a laughing mask and lands at a Buddhist shrine, where Hana meets a girl named Fujiwara Zenko, and while talking to her, he hears a laughing voice. Fujiwara tells him that it's her father laughing. Fujiwara finds herself torn between taking care of her father and hating him for not trusting her with the shrine. While Hana helps Zenko tend to the shrine garden, he helps her discover that the priest isn't driving her away out of hatred, but because he wants her to choose her own path in life. While Zenko cries at her father's beside, Ashiya is able to take off the laughing mask and complete this task. Episode 4. While the two are talking on the roof, Albeno pays him for his last job and tells him he could have done better. After that same day, Albeno informs Hana that he won't be available for the next 2 days, since he is going to the underworld to get some medicine. This makes Hana curious about the underworld, and the Mononokean suggests that Albeno takes Hana with him. Albeno agrees and tells Hana to meet him at the roof on Saturday afternoon. Albeno gives him a woman's cloth to put on, and after detailing the rules, Albeno and Ashiya set off to the underworld. And Ashiya wonders if he will get to meet the small fuzzy yokai. Hana is amused to see the underworld, which is so bright and colorful. Then they get to the medicine shop, where Hana is introduced to Kora, the mistress of Kyakudo, and her faithful employee, Shizuku. They find out that the medicine intended for Albeno is sold off to Big Boss Scree, and don't have any left. Albeno tells that he needs the medicine as soon as possible and will pay extra for it. Kora tells them that they have to wait for some time before the medicine is prepared. During that time, the two provide the shop some assistance. Hana chases a yokai thinking it's Fuzzy, but he gets mistaken for a thief and gets his hands nearly chopped, but he is rescued by Fuzzy. Episode 5. While in the shop, Shizuku notices that Hana is not there. Albeno sets out to find Hana. Fuzzy is fighting and gets hurt badly, seeing which Hana becomes strange. He returns to normal as soon as Albeno hits him, and it doesn't seem like he changed at all. In the meantime, Kora, the master of the medicine house, gets a call from the legislator, who is the brother of the medicine house master assistant, Shizuku. He asks her to tell Albeno to bring the new employee to him, and that he will decide on the employment. Fuzzy is then treated by Shizuku, and Kora informs Albeno about the meeting. While on the way to the legislator, Albeno describes the rules of the underworld to Hana. There are 3 rules: the justice, the legislator, and the executive, and the master of the Mononokean answers to no one, but only has to follow the rules set by the legislator. When they meet, the legislator tells Hana that very few people know that Albeno is a human, including him and Kora. Later, the legislator agrees to Hana becoming the Mononokean's employee, and also hires Fuzzy as a yokai employee. He also makes a new rule that the master of the Mononokean and its employees can all travel to the underworld through the Mononokean. While leaving, the legislator comments that he now understands why Albeno always refused yokai to be the employee at the Mononokean, because humans cannot be possessed by a parasite shrub. Episode 6. Albeno is pissed off with Hana for causing trouble all the time. A new request is obtained from a yokai named Manjiro, who wants them to find a missing ring from a pair. The rings are wedding rings belonging to an old lady who has lost her husband and was wearing both of the rings, but she has lost her own. After attending the class, Albeno and Hana meet the yokai at the place where he lost his ring. Hana proclaims that he has always been good at finding lost metal things. They then start looking for the ring. Within a few minutes, Hana finds the ring, but then they are stuck with the problem of how to return it to the old lady. Albeno suggests dropping it on her mailbox, but Hana tells him to think of a better way. Hana then suggests telling the old lady all about the Manjiro to make it a little special for both, since it's going to be the last time Manjiro will see the old woman, but they decide against it, since humans never react well to yokai. Manjiro leads them to the place where the old lady lives, but when they reach the house, they are caught by the old lady before they mail the ring, and they end up telling her about Manjiro. While they are thinking if the lady will accept the ring or not, the old lady accepts the ring and tells them that Manjiro is her late husband's name. The old lady invites them for dinner as thanks. Albeno hears someone saying "found you," and he sees footsteps disappearing from the top of the wall behind him. Episode 7. Albeno then sends Manjiro to the underworld. Hana and Albeno meet Zenko at school, where she shows them a mark on her hand. She tells them that others can't see it, and so it must be from a yokai. She also says that she has been able to see yokai since she got bitten by a yokai looking like a dog. While listening to her story, suddenly a fox yokai appears on Albeno's shoulder. Albeno is shocked since he wasn't able to sense the yokai's presence at all. The yokai calls him Harusiki and tells him that he knew him as a child, but might have forgotten. The yokai also tells him that they are to play hide and seek, and he will remove the bite mark, or else the bite he left on Zenko will wither off her hand. Zenko tells the fox to wait till after school at her shrine home. The yokai agrees and disappears. Hana reaches the place where they are about to play hide and seek. He calls Albeno, but Albeno doesn't answer the call. Zenko reaches there, and then both see Albeno looking for the fox. Albeno finds the fox, and the three are left playing hide and seek till late, as the fox disappears every time they catch him, asking them to play yet again. Finally, Ashiya manages to catch the tricky fox, and Albeno recalls his name as Yahiko. Yahiko tells them that Albeno was an employee of the Mononokean when they met, and the master then was named Aoi. Suddenly, Zenko's arm starts hurting, and Yahiko turns into a giant fox, questioning Albeno that there's a rumor that he killed Aoi to become the master of the Mononokean. It's not true, is it? Episode 8. Albeno manages to convince Yahiko that he will never kill Aoi, and that if at all Aoi heard about it, they would laugh while holding his stomach. Yahiko removes the bite mark from Zenko's arm and apologizes to her. She tells Zenko that she'll never do this again in the future, to her or to anyone, and promises to help her around the shrine for a year as an apology. Ashiya meets another yokai, Jomatsu, who notices him and flies towards him. He asks Hanae if he knows any Mononokean. He wants help from the Mononokean to help the princess Anmo, who he serves. He tells Ashiya about the fickle princess, who falls in love with just about anyone and hides herself in an egg, heartbroken. While usually she comes out of the egg soon, this time she doesn't come out even after a month. Instead, the egg grows larger. Hanae agrees to help. Hanae follows Jomatsu to the egg's location, but Jomatsu forbids him from breaking the shell out of fear that it would hurt Anmo. So instead, Hanae tricks her into coming out by threatening Jomatsu. Hanae manages to make her come out of the egg. Abeno arrives. Abeno has another case to deal with, and he was glib and dismissive about Jomatsu's problem. Instead of becoming a couple with Jomatsu, who is in love with her, the princess falls in love with Albeno, who has just arrived, creating a new problem for their return to the underworld. Episode 9. When Albeno is hired to exercise a yokai by a human, he unenthusiastically heads to the client's house with Hanae and Fuzzy. The girl who hired him is unable to see yokai, but is interested in the occult. She is so excited and starts questioning about how exorcism takes place. She seems very interested in their work. Albeno gets inside her room and asks Hanae to watch the door while he works, so nobody bothers him. But that girl starts inquiring about if there's a ghost, can she see him, and is it right inside the room. Then the girl's mother comes in, who doesn't believe in the supernatural. The girl and her mother start arguing. The mother refuses to pay, and the girl says that she will pay from her allowance. Hanae asks both of them to calm down. The lady sends her daughter to bring tea, and begins asking Hanae many questions. He clarifies to her that there are such things as exorcism, but he doesn't know everything about it. He is just an assistant. Lady tells him to quit the job he can't even explain, and that she is not convinced at all. The girl sneakily opens the door, and then they feel an earthquake, and Hanae runs towards the room. They follow it and find it beneath the bed. Hanae talks lovingly to the creature to calm it down, and send it back. The woman, instead of being thankful, admonishes both of them. Hanae becomes very disturbed. Abena remains calm and tells them that their job is a thankless one. People won't consider something that they cannot see. Episode 10. They receive a call from Okino. They reach there, but are admonished by her father. He starts saying bad words, but she calls them in and shows them Yahiko. She is not in bad form. There they came to know about a strange smell, which makes Yahiko inebriated and strange, coming from potatoes. They head to the farm, where they see all the smoke and mud. Fuzzy gets into the farm and gets big. Hanae and Albeno leave Fuzzy and Okino beside the farm, and get themselves inside smoke. There they encounter a yokai calling himself Nobo. Nobo has been attempting to leave the farm, but each time he does, he is enveloped in a strange smoke, forced to witness the events of his past, and returns to where he started. Nobo asks to be exorcised so he can leave the farm, but Albena notices something about the situation. Ashiya gets trapped in Nobo's phantasmagoria, visions of his memories that Nobo can extend to other creatures. Nobo was sitting in this field, talking to a regular scarecrow, when a human suddenly dropped a cigarette in the field, starting a fire. Nobo stood by helplessly while the fire consumed the field, including his scarecrow friend. Afraid to do anything and be hurt by the flames himself, he is feeling guilty of this and can't leave the farm. Albeno tells Nobo that he has to solve this one on his own. Hanae objects that they should help him, but Albeno says that it's not his friend biting him here, but his own guilt not allowing him. He himself subconsciously created the smoke. He has to accept that what he did was wrong, realize there's nothing he can do to change the past, and try to move on from it. After some painful confrontation, Nobo is able to move on, allowing the steam and smell to go away, and the other yokai to go back to normal. This also allows Albeno to finally open the gate to the underworld and return Nobo to it. Nobo thanks everyone and hugs Hanae. Episode 11. A yokai named Okina meets the Mononokean on a rainy day. Hanae and Albeno make her feel comfortable with tea and blankets. Okino is quick to establish that she is mainly here in service of her friend Tomori, a sealed yokai who is functionally blind and needs help returning to the underworld. Before that though, she wants to see the mundane world one last time. She can do this by temporarily taking someone else's eyesight specifically, a human's ability to see yokai. Albeno makes a note of the reason why the yokai didn't come with Okina to the Mononokean, and agrees to meet and exorcise Tomori. Next morning, Tomori meets Albeno and Hanae, and tells Albeno to exorcise her as she has lived in the mundane world for a long time, and wants to return to the underworld. She mentions that she's unable to see for quite a long time, and she'd regained her sight when she returned to the underworld. Hanae then walks towards her and asks whether she'd like to see the mundane world before she gets exorcised. Tomori immediately says that she didn't mean to imply that, but Hanae insists that she answers the question, as it is going to bother him later. Tomori then admits that she wants to see the mundane world before she leaves, and Hana lets Tomori borrow his ability to see yokai for a day. Tomori appreciates the beauty of the mundane world and lets Albeno exorcise her. Episode 12. Albeno has a long discussion with the legislator where he justifies his decision to fire Hanae. Hanae joins the photography club at school to find that he has a real knack for the hobby. He sees it as a possible talent to develop in the absence of his job at the Mononokean. Hanae bumps into Zenko that he's just trying to make the best of his situation, and he still really wants his sight back. He told her about his large vision of yokai. She comes up with the idea of getting him bitten by Yahiko, as she got her power by that only. He agrees and follows her home. At Zenko's house, Zenko's father has the idea that his temple should offer exorcisms, using Hanae. He hounds Hanae with this for the next minute or so, before Zenko can drag him away to test Yahiko's bite. Yahiko's bite doesn't work. Albeno is called by the waitress on his way to a place, where a Yukio is so thankful to him and Hanae. But when he comes to know that Hanae is fired because of his inability, he decides to help Albeno by fighting Tomiro, another yokai. It is concluded that fighting Tomiro is tough, but he along with his children goes. When this news of Hanae goes to the other yokai, they all turn up to help him. Albeno is still upset with the fact that even as the other yokai helped to turn him, he was supposed to help the yokai. But here the yokai are helping him back. The lady consoles him by saying it's the best thing. All yokai together find Tomiro. Albeno goes to meet Tomiro, but it turns out to be fruitless. He asks her to not worry. He will find a way, and go into the underworld alone. Hanae also leaves Zenko and walks somewhere. Fuzzy is hanging over him, but he has no idea about it. Episode 13. Albeno is trying his best to find a way to get Hanae his ability back. He discusses it with Yahiko and Okino. Hanae is at his school very distressed, not able to concentrate. He starts to feel he has not only lost his ability to see yokai, but is also losing his mind. He decides to go and meet Albeno. He senses something following him and many strange things happening. He reaches inside the house, guided by a leaf. There he sees a skull hanging. He becomes scared, but he motivates himself to fight, but then he sees a hand behind him and gets unconscious. Everyone gather around him. They all start giving different ideas to wake him up. Fuzzy wakes him up and Hanae hugs Fuzzy. His vision is back. Everyone is happy. After telling that Albeno was worried about Hanae, everyone goes into the underworld again. Hanae bid goodbye to them. Yahiko tells Hanae about all the things done by everyone to bring him back. Hanae gets emotional. Albeno asks him to get back into the job. Hanae agrees. Hanae comes to know that Fuzzy was with him all the time, instead of his inability to see him. Hanae talks to Fuzzy through the Mononokean. Fuzzy asks him to play ball with him. Hanae talks with the Mononokean about reasons yokai can't get too attached to humans. Humans have a finite lifespan, while yokai do not, reminding him of the reasons that yokai do not understand Aoi's death. Albeno had to learn this the hard way, from his previous master's death, but he says that Hanae will just need to learn it in his own time, as he watches him play with Fuzzy. Hanae asks to take Fuzzy home for tonight. Albeno agrees.